Welcome once again to another episode of The Catholic View for Women, where we give you news and views from a truly Catholic perspective. My name is Teresa Tomeo, and along with my wonderful co-hosts Elena Rodriguez and Janet Morana, we welcome you to a very special edition because we have in our studio wonderful pilgrims here at EWTN in Irondale, Alabama for their second pilgrimage for The Catholic View for Women. Okay, you can clap. It's okay. Yay! And it's so fun to have a live audience.
It is. And, I want people to understand that coming to a pilgrimage here at EWTN, it's really a great thing to do. And we hope when we talk about future ones, we get people to come because, first of all, it's a religious experience. They were here this morning at the televised Mass. They get a behind-the-scenes tour here of the network. And, of course, now they're in the audience here where we're taping our shows. Then they're going to go and have a wonderful lunch at the Irondale Cafe, Whistle Stop Cafe. Which was really the movie Fried Green Tomatoes was after that place. And then they're going to come back and they're going to do a little bit more touring. They're going to have time in the chapel to pray before the Blessed Sacrament, do a little tour of the gift shop, and then we're going to do a book signing with them. And then, of course, tonight they'll be back on the audience for the live show with Father Mitch. And then the highlight to me is tomorrow when we're going to take them all out to Hansville.
To the shrine.
To the shrine of the Most Blessed Sacrament. We're going to pray by the tomb of Mother Angelica and see the beautiful shrine out there. It's a great day of prayer and reflection. And after the three of us have taped, a full series, I think it'll be nice for us to take that little spiritual time with our pilgrims and breathe.
Yes. We can actually breathe.
Breathe.
Yeah,
we can breathe a little.
And it's so wonderful to have our pilgrims here with us because we have this immediate connection. We've never
Catholic connection?
It's a
That's the name of the
Catholic
radio
connection.
show host at EWTN.
You should host a show like that.
You
one
think
day
so?
I think
on
so,
EWTN
yeah.
Radio. And it's so wonderful because we speak that very same language of the faith and our love for our Lord Jesus Christ and for His Most Blessed Mother immediately forms this connection. And some connections are made for life. You stay in touch with one another and friendships arise like that. It's beautiful.
Well, I can speak for that because I do pilgrimages and I've been working with a wonderful travel agency, corporate travel out of Dearborn. And Dearborn, Michigan. I talk about them a lot on the radio. And I began doing pilgrimages with them in 2004. And I have many good friends, including one of our main hosts here, Carmen Norkevich. And she actually started working as a travel assistant at corporate travel after her first pilgrimage. And we've been friends for 12 years. And so many of my close friends now I've met actually through pilgrimages, and I'm sure we'll make many new friends as well. And what I thought was really beautiful, before we get to our topic today, which is actually a wonderful one and ties in with pilgrimage, Faith on the Front Lines, it's amazing to me in terms of the stories that we heard last night at our opening event.
That's right.
And Janet had the wonderful idea of asking the pilgrims to stand up and say, why are you here? Why did you come?
Why did you come?
And
also
amazing.
Too, we were, Father Mitch hosted us at his parish, St. Elias, and then we had a beautiful Lebanese dinner, and that's when we did our sharing. And it's remarkable, the faith stories that each pilgrim stood and gave. And then, of course, I think they're all bonding now, becoming real girlfriends, which is
girlfriends and male friends, because we've got some husbands here.
There's some husbands here.
Let's hear it for the guys.
Let's hear it for the guys.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yay.
Protectors and defenders.
Amen.
Well, speaking of guys, many people have heard of Joe Scheidler with Pro-Life Action League. We call him the godfather of the pro-life movement.
In a good way.
In a good way.
Yes.
But behind, every successful man is also sometimes a very powerful and wonderful woman. And in the case of Joe Scheidler, it's his lovely wife, Anne. And she is a powerful, strong woman, a wonderful mother, a grandmother. And recently, Teresa and I were out at a conference, and it was actually in Chicago, which is where they're from. And I asked them, well, come on over to the hotel. I want to sit down. Because I've interviewed Joe many times in the past. But I said, I want to interview Anne. And let's hear what's it like being on the front lines of the pro-life movement, raising your children, and married to this dynamo, Joe Scheidler, because she's a dynamo herself. So let's take a look at what Anne had to say.
Sure.
Well, I grew up in a big family. I'm the oldest of 10 children, and I always just loved that. I loved that people would be kind of surprised that I had so many siblings. I loved being able to rattle off the kids' names in order real fast and impress people with how many sisters and brothers I had. So it was something that I always anticipated, when I would get married and have a family, that I would want to have a larger family. And I think giving your kids siblings is one of the greatest gifts that you can provide for them. So, and it has been a real adventure and blessing and a great a great thing, I think, for all of us to have a larger family. So we have 3 girls and 4 boys. We started out with 3 boys, and then we had 3 girls, and then we tell people we were starting over again with another boy. So poor kid had 3 sisters ahead of him, but he turned out fine. Probably better for it, I suppose. 23 grandchildren as of this taping, and 2 more that are on the way. So, and I pride myself that I can give you those names in alphabetical order. And I know everybody's birthday, and you know, we like to be very, very much a part of those kids' lives, because they're a wonderful bunch of kids. Well, you know, to start with, we were not involved in the pro-life movement in the early days of our marriage and for the first few children we had. I was pregnant with our first daughter, our 4th child, when Roe v. Wade came down. And both of us were truly shocked that our country would not think our child had any value except what value we chose to give to her. And we started looking around for ways that we could undo this, being a little naive about the state of the country and how far morals had already declined. So, so we got involved right away, you know, as soon as that happened in January of 1973. So from Kathy on down, the next, you know, 4 children, we were all already involved. And we would bring the kids with us to go out and protest in front of an abortion clinic, or once we started doing sidewalk counseling, you know, bring them. Joe would take the wagon and put the kids in the wagon and take them down to protests. And they grew up with it. I mean, because our oldest, Eric, who is now the executive director of the Pro-Life Action League, he was introduced to abortion when he was, what, about 8 years old, I guess. And so their whole lives, they've been involved in this movement. They've seen the pictures of the aborted babies. They've known what abortion is all about. And they've all contributed in one way or another to the fight. But it's also been really difficult at many times because, of course, it's countercultural. And although the kids were all in Catholic schools, that didn't mean that their classmates shared their pro-life views or that their classmates' parents were on board. So they would often have to either fight that battle in school or on the playground, or as Eric would say sometimes to people when they'd ask, what does your father do for a living? I'll tell you if we don't have to fight about it, if we don't have to argue about it. And Sarah tells about when she was in about 2nd grade and they're going around the room telling what their parents did for a living. And she desperately wished her father were a dentist because she just didn't want to have to say he fights abortion. It's, you know, it's always controversial. In fact, I took a French class one time, and a French conversation class. And the very first class, they went around the room and they asked you to tell in French, you know, your name, what about your family, and what is it that you do. And the teacher would comment about what everybody else did. Somebody was a nurse, somebody worked in computers, you know. They get to me and I say, I try to save babies from abortion and direct women to help. Dead silence. No comment about that. So, you know, I get a touch of what it is the kids were facing when they went to school. And the difficulty of being kind of in the spotlight on a topic that isn't popular. Like, I mean, if your father was, for instance, out saving puppies from being destroyed, everybody would think that was wonderful. They'd probably think it was wonderful if you were involved in trying to help kids with disabilities or kids that needed, that were hungry and needed food. But saving them from abortion, that was way too controversial. So it was not easy for them along the line, you know.
I'm telling you, What a lady, and what a family. I mean, you know, Father Frank and I have known the Scheidler, really have known them very, very well for many, many years. We made numerous trips to Chicago. When they had their case, you know, they had that case Now versus Scheidler, where they went to the Supreme Court, not once, not twice, three times.
Yes.
And we're victorious. We were there then for the victory party. And what people don't realize, you know, when they had that fight through the Supreme Court, Joe was being accused in pro-life actually of being racketeers, and they tried to sue them. You know, now the National Organization of Women tried to sue them under the RICO laws. They had to put their house up as a bond to go forward. And I remember Ann saying to me, like, well, one day I said to my mother, her mom said to her, so Ann, what are you going to do if you lose? She goes, ha, I guess we'll come live with you. You know, but the faith they have as an entire family, they, you know, they just don't talk about ending abortion. They've walked it for decades as a family. And one of the most remarkable stories that they told me was about their daughter, Kathy. You remember that she said that, oh, the children all went to Catholic school, but that doesn't mean everyone in the school, the parents, or even some of the teachers, or the school basically had a policy where they accepted that we should bring an end to abortion. Well, it was Kathy's graduation, and they invited the governor of Illinois to be the keynote, and he, of course, was a pro-abortion governor, had vetoed any chance of any pro-life bill. And so they decided to protest their own daughter's graduation. Because first they made the phone calls and the letters begging them not to have the governor there. And they said, this is a bad example. And so they protested Kathy's graduation. And the whole family was outside, just Kathy was inside. And I remember Ann saying that Kathy that morning said, well, what's going to happen when I cross the graduation stage? Am I going to get booed? And it turned out, no, she didn't get booed. She got applauded. And it turned out the governor's speech was so boring that people were falling asleep during it. So I don't know, somehow the angels protected them. And then afterwards, there were some parents going in saying, how dare you do this to your daughter? But later, teachers came up to the Scheidlers and said, thank God for what you did, for the example you have given
for those young people,
for these young people to stick by our Catholic principles, and thank God for the Scheidlers that they did this. And you know, they do this all the time, and they don't look at what's this going to do to me? You know, what cost am I going to have if I stand up for the unborn, if I stand up with my Catholic faith and my principles? And it looks, you know, it looked very tough. I mean, I was talking with them constantly during the times, it was like over a decade of that case going through the Supreme Court 3 times. And sometimes it looked kind of dismal and scary. And I remember saying, and I can't imagine the thought of losing your house with all these children. You know, and she said, well, Janet, somehow the Lord's going to protect us. And he did. And I think that's a great lesson in that.
It's such a risk, because you can think, oh, okay, I'm an adult, I can take it, and I'm here with my spouse, and we're together. But my children, don't touch my children.
Right.
Yeah.
I can understand that also, this persecution. Being a little girl in my school, an atheist school, growing up in Costa Rica, my mom started in an evangelization course to bring us up in the faith. So she started with kindergarten all the way through First Communion.
Wow.
And it was great. There was great persecution underneath all that. And then she extended it all the way to senior year. And we grew up in that same environment where we were persecuted by our own classmates.
Wow.
And I thought it was really, I didn't understand that, because I knew that my mom was doing the right thing. And this was persecution involving witchcraft and all that. It was high level.
Wow.
I became familiar with these things at the tender age of 10 or 11. But it formed me, the formation at that age is such an important thing.
Well, yeah, because your mind is being developed, and your way of life, and look at how it strengthens you, and look at what you're doing now.
And so the question is, how early do we start forming our children in the pro-life principles? Some people might think it's too harsh. Let them be teenagers. Let them grow up a little bit so that they can understand. But these young children are seeing mom and dad in the front lines.
Right.
Not just writing an email and all that is wonderful, but they are in the front lines.
But also, if we don't do that, the culture is going to do it. The culture is going to form. It already is forming kids at younger and younger ages. I mean, you look at a 3-year-old, you hand them a cell phone, they know exactly what to do.
I know.
And they'll find something on you quicker than we can find it.
And the iPads, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So
crazy.
that I think is very important. But, you know, the whole idea of faith on the front lines, this is what we're facing in our culture today. And we hope that those watching this will realize this is what it takes to be a Christian in this culture. It is not easy.
No, it's
and
not.
we are all on the front lines, and it can't just be the Joe Scheidlers and the Father Pavones and the Priests for Life groups and EWTN. We all have to be out there, because we are all called to evangelize by virtue of her baptism and be on the front lines for the Lord and especially for life. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll, of course, chat a little bit with our wonderful studio audience, and then we'll also give you some tips on how to handle this whole idea of faith on the front lines and encourage you to be strong in your faith and to make a difference, because nothing else matters. In the end, it's all about Jesus. We'll be right back. Welcome back to another episode of The Catholic View for Women, having a great conversation. You just heard our interview with Ann Scheidler, of course, the Pro-Life Action League. Her husband Joe started an amazing powerhouse couple in the pro-life movement. Our topic for today's episode is faith on the front lines, and certainly, as Janet and Elena were saying, they were such a great example, the Scheidlers, and are such a great example of faith on the front lines. You were mentioning the experience you had growing up, seeing your mom witness to you by starting that class for evangelization when you were in school. And I have that. I have a wonderful husband who was pro-life long before I was, and he's very involved in Deacons for Life with Priests for Life. And Deacon Dom is also a sidewalk counselor on 8 Mile Road. And you talk about faith on the front lines, 8 Mile in Detroit, the infamous 8 Mile Road. He's been approached several times, and sometimes it can get pretty scary out there, but he is determined that he has to be out there as a man supporting women and saying somebody cares about you. You don't have to go through with this.
That's right. And if you notice, Anne said that they always brought their children in front of the abortion clinic to pray and to help counsel women to turn them around, to not go in and destroy the life of their child. And I know many people say, oh, why should children be out there? Should they really be out there? And actually, I've seen this all over the country. When children are out there in front of that abortion mill, it helps change women's minds, because at the last minute, like they saw a baby in a carriage and they're seeing those little toddlers. And then other people will say, well, but some people have those pictures of the victims of abortion, the aborted baby pictures. And I always tell them, I said, guess what? The children get it. Live baby, good. Dead baby, bad.
Yes.
I also
Common
ask the
sense.
question, as someone who's, my expertise is media in terms of media violence and media influence. You mean to tell me that those kids who are standing there at that same age may not have watched a violent, gory video or, played a violent video game? And this is an important way. And you have to, it depends on the parent, if the parent thinks the child can handle that or what they should be exposed to. But oftentimes when you're out there, especially like if you do the life chain during the month of October, usually it's just very loving signs, abortion hurts women, I regret my abortion, or there's hope and healing.
Right.
But it is a powerful witness to be out there on the front lines with an entire family.
Yeah, and even if they've just come to pray, we always say don't go by yourself, go with someone else. But even if it's just two people, praying in front of that abortion clinic, hearts and minds are changed, and women do turn around, because we know from the testimonies of the women with Silent No More, they're not going there to get their freedom of choice. They're going there because they feel they have no freedom
choice.
and they have no choice. And sometimes they get up that morning and say, God, I have to do this, but if you don't want me to do this, you got to send me a sign. Well, someone praying outside that abortion mill is that very sign, and you may never know. Sometimes people say, oh, sometimes I've been praying there for years and I've never saved a baby yet. You've saved them, because if they go into that abortion clinic and they change their mind, the clinic takes them out the back door. They're not going to let you know. And we've had cases where someone comes with a baby back to sidewalk counselors maybe a year or two later and say, I just had to tell you that you were responsible for me
hear that
not
all the
having
time.
an abortion.
Oh my goodness.
And so very
Praise
often the stories are not instantaneous. And I always tell everyone, don't worry. On the other side of heaven, like Henry Hyde used to say, that when we get to heaven, we will be greeted by all these babies.
Well, Dominic is involved as a counselor in Helpers of God's Precious Infants.
Right.
And he stands out there every Saturday with a woman and another man outside the abortion mills on 8 Mile. One time it's on the east side, one time, or the north side, one time it's on the south side. But he told of an experience just last year in 2016 where a woman came up, she was walking in with her granddaughter, and she was obviously distraught, and it was obvious that her granddaughter was the one who was, expecting the baby and going to go in and God forbid, have the abortion. And Dominic walked up to her and he said, you know, can I help you? And she said, I do not want my granddaughter to go through with this. You know, she's being pressured by other family members and her boyfriend. And she says, but I do know that the family just can't afford another child right now. If we only had some support. And Dominic said, I know I can take you to a place that will give you support. She says, we don't have a car. Dominic said, I'll drive you to the Pregnancy Resource Center. So he took the grandmother and the daughter, drove them to St. Monica's in the inner city, which has a Pregnancy Resource Center right in the parish, and connected them with some people there. And as far as we know, she went through with the pregnancy. But to be that, as you said, praying out there, and the grandmother told him later, I was praying to God that someone would be there, that one of you would be here today.
How important it is for men to commit to the pro-life movement, because they are saving, we are both men and women, we're saving lives. But men have this instinctive nature in them to be superheroes, to go out and defend the universe. And even grown men, they like comic books, they like superheroes, they go watch superhero movies, and they're grown men. This is a way to be a superhero, to save one life, 2 lives. The fact that you don't know that you've saved a life doesn't mean that you haven't. You'll find out later.
Mother Teresa says God doesn't expect us to be successful, only faithful. But with the men, even though that's their natural instinct, in this culture, they've been pushed aside. And how many men do we know in Silent No More that did not have anything to contribute? The woman, I don't need you to make this decision.
That's right.
They push them out of it, and they have a lot of regret, and they deal with post-abortion syndrome.
Let me share a quick story about my brother. When he first moved to Minnesota, from Costa Rica to Minnesota to go to college, he got involved in the sidewalk counseling. And so his assignment was to go by the abortion clinic and pray. One morning he was out there, it was very cold, and his partner in prayer didn't show up, got sick. He was there alone, pacing up and down, praying his rosary. He's looking at the watch. There's nobody out there, and he's afraid that he is not going to have enough time to go back to campus to get to his class. As a young college student, no car, or he had gotten there by the bus, but he had a time commitment that he had to be at the sidewalk counseling until such and such time. And all of a sudden, he keeps praying, all of a sudden, a friend of his from the parish, an older man, drives by and says, "Hi, Gustavo, what are you doing here?" "Oh, I'm here praying." "What a wonderful thing. Do you need a ride back?" He says, "Yes, actually, it'll get me to class just in time, if you don't mind, please." So the gentleman offering the ride says, "Oh, you're welcome to tell the other young man he can ride with us, too." And my brother goes, like, "Who? I'm alone. What do you mean, the other young man?" "Yeah, that other young man who was there walking with you. Doesn't he need a ride?" And my brother is like, "There's nobody there. It was me by myself." I said, "I could have sworn that was your brother. He looks just like you." And so we concluded, I still have goosebumps as I'm telling you this story how many years after, that must have been his guardian angel protecting him.
Oh, wow.
There's no other way to explain it.
Wow.
But this older gentleman can guarantee that he saw another young man walking right by my brother.
Right. And I'm sure he was, I know the folks, the pro-lifers up there in Minnesota, and I'm sure he was in front of this one Planned Parenthood there, that they're constantly out there, the sidewalk council, saving lots and lots of babies up there, and they do a great job.
Well, then sometimes, and these are all encouraging stories to remember, that sometimes when we think that, you know, we're out there on the front lines, that we're by ourselves, but God is always with us, and then when you have that kind of a witness, that's amazing. That's like a made-for-TV movie or something.
Right.
That's
You couldn't
like
script
amazing.
this.
Yeah,
You couldn't script this.
Well, of course, I would like to discuss our homework just a little bit, because it's very important, starting with, you know, just like what your brother did, pray.
Yes.
Pray, pray, pray. And that's what our homework assignment, first thing on our homework assignment is praying for an end to abortion every single day. Even if you cannot be in front of an abortion clinic, when you get up in the morning, say a prayer, some of your prayers, for the specific intention of ending abortion. Pray also that day for all mothers who are tempted to have abortion. Pray for those who are going to have that abortion anyway and can't be stopped, for them to come to healing. Pray for the doctors and the nurses and the staff in that abortion clinic, that they'll have a change of heart. So the prayer component, if we're not praying for the end of abortion, it's not going to happen. We've got to be praying every single day. And of course, the second item on our homework, I'd like you to go to the website of the Scheidlers, prolifeaction.org, which is the Pro-Life Action League's website. And of course, then I've written a good book called Recall Abortion, available at the EWTN Religious Catalog. It will give you plenty of talking points to really understand this issue. The testimonies of women of silent no more in that book, and a lot of facts that you can help change hearts and minds within your circle of influence. And then, of course, item number 4 is Teresa's beautiful book, Extreme Makeover, also available at the EWTN Religious Catalog.
And your reversion story is in there, as well as the reversion story of several other Catholic women or conversion stories, plus a whole chapter called Abortion Distortion.
That's right. And then, of course, number 5, go to our website, thecatholicviewforwomen.com, sign up for our e-letter, and, of course, give us your suggestions and input for future shows, and, of course, like us on Facebook. And then finally, one quick breath, let's look at our patroness for the show, the Kitchen Madonna. And she, of course, has beautiful symbols, from the kettle to nourish us in body and in soul, the broom to keep our thoughts and minds clean, and also our home, and the keys to the kingdom to keep Mary will show us the way to the kingdom, but also to keep the house safe.
All right, well, great information, and we want to give a round of applause to our in-studio audience, our pilgrims who are here for the Catholic View for Women pilgrimage. Thank you for joining us. And for more information on pilgrimages to EWTN, you can go to our main website, EWTN.com, and just look at the pilgrimage department. We want to remind you that be not afraid, as St. John Paul II said so many times, and our Lord Jesus says, be not afraid. Faith on the front lines, nowhere else to be, because again, it is all about Jesus and being there for him. He did it for us, we have to do it for him. Thanks for watching the Catholic View for Women. On behalf of our pastoral advisor, Father Frank, Janet Morana, and Elena Rodriguez, I'm Teresa Tomeo. We'll see you next time on the Catholic View for Women. Thanks for watching.